UN Summit on Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, kicked off at the General Assembly this week. The goals were adopted by the UN in 2015 and include, among other objectives, climate action. At the heart of it all, though, really is a healthy planet. We've already seen heat records this summer. We've seen stronger and more intense storms. Nobody really knows this better than Hawaii Governor Josh Green about the intersection between a warming world and real-life damage that is already happening in communities in the U.S. and around the globe. Governor Green is with us now live. Governor Green, thank you so much for being here with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So listen, you were talking to this UN summit on sustainability, and you said we are no longer anticipating the destructive effects of climate change. We are now fully enduring them. As you think about sustainability going forward and a clean planet going forward, it's going to be critical as you start to grapple with what it's going to take to rebuild Lahaina and surrounding neighborhoods. We know that climate change may well have made that fire much more intense. Is sustainability the priority in rebuilding Lahaina?
It is. The first priority, of course, is to care for our people and care for the 97 families that lost a loved one, find them housing and go forward. But building for the future and addressing the future is what we all have to do. It is a good thing that the UN was taking this up this week. We have no choice. Like I said, and you eloquently reflected, everyone is vulnerable now, everyone. This is not an abstract situation any longer. The evidence is there. From 1953 to 2003, we had exactly 6 fire emergencies in Hawaii. This year in August, we had 6 fire emergencies in Hawaii. So it's on us. We have to be very smart about the future. It's going to take a lot of action to reverse climate change, of course, but now we have to mitigate. So every city and state and country around the globe, if they want to protect their people, is going to have to do things like underground wires, find ways to have better water policy in each region. They're going to need to do things like have fire breaks. All of these are going to be necessary if you want to save lives. And obviously, there are so many vulnerable communities because where there's poverty, there's less infrastructure. And where there's less infrastructure, there's extreme exposure.
Yeah. At the same time, though, you've got a really short deadline here. I mean, 2030 is right around the corner. Are these goals, I mean, clean water, 14 other goals, are they really even achievable by 2030 if we're realistic?
I would be shocked if we achieve them all, but they are aspirational. And also, they're the right things to pursue. Whether each and every state can get there, I would be amazed. But you have to prioritize and focus on the right things to have even a chance. We have these crises, and they sometimes do kind of serve as catalysts to get us certain places. It happened in 9/11. When 9/11 occurred, people were not thinking about security at airports the way they are now. That occurred, and everyone changed, and we became a security-focused state, at least for travel. For us in Hawaii, we had concerns over the years, but we had never had a fire that took people's lives like this ever. And then this occurs, so obviously policy will shift. There'll be added and renewed focus, and that's what you have to do. I'm concerned because it's not just Maui that suffered terribly. Just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've also had the terrible disaster in Libya and Morocco. We've had fires all across Greece and Canada affecting the northeast of the United States. I mean, it's everywhere. So we'd have to be idiots to not focus on global warming and mitigation of these strong storms. Let's hope that the world will rally.
Yeah, and it's also so important that our governments be ready to respond to more intense and faster moving disasters. And I know there are questions right now about the response immediately on Maui as that fire ripped through, and the Republican-led House Oversight Committee is now launching a probe into the federal response. They claim that there may not have been a timely response on the part of the Biden administration and FEMA. Did your state get what you needed in a timely manner as that fire ripped through Lahaina?
Absolutely. We submitted that first night, we submitted our request for a major disaster declaration, and President Biden approved it 6 hours later. And then we already had FEMA on the ground. We've gotten so much support. We had the bipartisan committee, and I'm thanking them also in this moment for being there. But President Biden was right on it. I had constant communication from his cabinet, people like Tom Perez and and administrators from every branch right there from FEMA were with us. So we had the support. What we don't have is a way for our planet to really deal with these problems yet. And that is going to be what that's going to be the cross we have to bear for the next 100 years. So we need to do certain things and prioritize, like these SDGs say, prioritize these very human needs.
Yeah.
And each one leads to another. Isolation leads to hunger. Hunger and drought lead to climate migration, which is a very, very big problem, even here in New York, where I'm visiting to give my speeches. So we're all interconnected. It is a global ecosystem, and we have to be thoughtful about that ecosystem, or we're going to all suffer and pay the consequences on the back end, which is much worse.
It's so critical. It's the most critical issue of our time, probably, and the most life-threatening. I do want to ask you about one more thing before we let you go. And I know we weren't planning on discussing this, but I'm curious because we're going to be doing a special later this week on the continued effects of a fuel spill that people may not be familiar with really on the mainland. But it was this massive fuel spill on the island of Oahu from the Red Hill Book Fuel Storage Facility. We're going to be spending a half hour on it on Thursday night. And there are still a lot of people who are having medical complications from that spill. I actually want you really quickly to listen to a woman who we spoke to. Her name is Noreen. And she says one of her kids is really, really sick. And I want to ask you a question on the other side.
One of my daughters now, she cannot come in contact with any water on this island without having severe reactions. This was a kid who, friendly, outgoing, happy, just a typical, kid. Even today, she hasn't gotten out of bed.
Governor, that's Noreen Tuck, and she says that her daughter's now having seizures, that neurologists on Oahu won't even entertain fuel contamination as the cause, and a lot of other families like Noreen have actually left Hawaii because they feel they couldn't find the care they needed. The Navy's top doctor has even said that he doesn't think there's ongoing impact. Look, you're a physician. You get this. You're also the governor of Hawaii, and I know you have deep empathy for the people who've gone through that. What would your message be to Noreen and anybody who doubts that there's lasting impact from the Red Hill spill?
Well, my heart breaks for Noreen. I did see several families, some of whom had children that were having seizures. It is always complicated medicine when you've had these kind of spills and exposures. But what I would say to her is she absolutely deserves to have every access to second and third consultations and opinions as needed. We have to support her and anyone who was anywhere near the spill. The jet fuel spill that happened at Red Hill is being remediated and all of the fuel is being drained, but for some families it's too late. My team actually set up some additional physician support, but she needs to get constant, detailed and comprehensive care because it sounds like her child might even be experiencing an immunologic reaction to some of the contaminants. And that is pretty complicated medicine and will require specialty care.
Well, we're going to forward your response along to her because she's been texting me like crazy, Governor, and I got to tell you, she is terrified for her daughter. So thank you for addressing that. I really appreciate it and spending some time with us today on these important issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much.